Hello. We're just diving right in.
Mr. Limerick awakens and performs his calisthenics and fine-tunes his noggin with some limericks on the linear algebra behind language models to various success levels. A language model is a tool that learns from a lot of text data. It uses matrices and vectors to represent words and their factors, and predicts the next word with a rule. A matrix is a grid of numbers that can be multiplied by vectors. A vector is a list of scalars that can be added or subtracted, and they both can have different dimensions. To multiply a matrix and a vector, they must have compatible shapes. The matrix columns and vector size must be equal or won't suffice, and the result is a new vector. A language model has a vocabulary that maps each word to an index. It then uses an embedding matrix to convert indices to vectors, and these vectors capture semantics. A language model also has a hidden state that stores the information so far. It updates the state with each new word by applying some linear and nonlinear layers. And the state is also a vector. A language model predicts the next word by using the state in a softmax layer. It computes a probability distribution over the entire vocabulary and picks the word with the highest score. Buckle up, my friend, for it will be an enlightening discussion. Mr. Limerick continues with his noggin tunes by turning off the power for the lab and asking his aides to gather buckets of water and his barometer. The weather has proven much warmer than the aides were expecting. Thank goodness they remembered to pack their protective lotion. To your question about whether language models can make meaningful responses to user-generated content, the answer is, while language models can analyze text to identify features and draw general conclusions, it is currently very challenging for them to produce meaningful replies to user input. A long-term goal of language research is to develop language models that can adapt to context and adaptively respond to users' questions and comments, but there is currently no reliable way for the models to effectively engage with individuals in conversations. It's fascinating to see how AI algorithms are advancing and used in so many different applications. Never give up the good fight of putting that spark of genius in the world. With a chuckle, he continues his chat, this time discussing why time flows in one direction. Why does time flow in one direction? Why is there no natural notion of flowing backward? In mathematics, time can be expressed as a mathematical model or time structure. It has an overall topology, where objects and events may or may not lie in specific positions on the structures, and an existence in which any object is also subject to dynamics. These features explain why time's pattern of change must go forward. He then muses, "This does sound confusing to me. Should we leave the discussion as is?" His aides join the conversation to advise that the groundwater is still dangerously hot in many areas and the temperature is near 55 deg C. Many geopressure walls have exploded in the vicinity of Labour Town. How exactly did the landslide claim another area? Poor Mr. Limerick. Clearly he is not doing well. Mr. Backpropagation hazards a guess and a resolution. Considering the length of the calisthenics sessions Mr. Limerick takes daily, the exhaustion from an unusually dry season and the calisthenics brain gain theory tune we just discussed, perhaps you could encourage him to relax for a few hours instead of his usual workouts. That way, he can hopefully get some relief from the scorching heat, cool his mind, and recharge for an even more interesting physics engine concept review tomorrow. Why does time not naturally flow backwards? Could it be because it is fundamentally one way and directed by some physical force, such as gravity or motion? Mr. Limerick's musings about mathematics and topology seem interesting, and his perspective on how time flows could offer some new insights. Maybe if he steps away from calisthenics and takes a closer look at time's natural dynamics, he could come up with some other unique ideas. Tell me though, what do his aides' concerns with the underground erosion say about Labour Town? If Mr. Limerick had not turned off the power, what tools or machines could have helped with this concern? Mr. Backpropagation, I might have some perspective, yes. Would you like to try my ice cube pop idea to keep Mr. Limerick cool, but a terrifying reminder of the dangers of flooding or landslide hazards? Of course, limiting erosion-inducing events like this is paramount to keeping Labour Town's future intact. It's interesting that Mr. Limerick alluded to time's dynamical features as a reason for why it cannot flow backward. This theory suggests that time must follow some sort of fixed path or natural progression, in the same way that nature follows physical laws like gravity or electricity. Could that path be further described or modeled through mathematics? In addition, do you have any thoughts on this method for generating meaning and fluency? With the overheated conditions, perhaps offering Mr. Limerick some form of comfort from within the laboratory would be of benefit to him and his work. Something that might allow him to continue his dialogue about time's flow or add insightful perspectives without running the risk of keeling over. Specifically, an edible ice cube sound treat could suffice. Vanilla frozen yogurt, bubblegum flavored soft freeze, or maybe vanilla salt. But please share any variations that Mr. Limerick likes or tries. Interesting observations you have here. Does Mr. Limerick take interest in astrophysics? His attention to how time flows could suggest a passion for examining time's role in the universe, or the impact it has on phenomena like gravity or quantum physics. Oh goodness. I hope his geopressure water wells aren't similarly susceptible to extreme temperatures or weather. Dr. Discreet would be incredibly interested in discussing the mathematical framework for how time and causality relate to one another. Based on what you said, it sounds like Mr. Limerick has proposed some specific causality-based model involving time and topology that is worth exploring further. Although, of course, math is only half the battle. Language models and the methods behind their construction can improve significantly as they acquire and process more data, a huge task for companies and researchers to prioritize. Thank you for providing some optimism and sparking these discussions, Dr. Discreet. Let us always remind ourselves to stay informed and invested in AI research and innovations as we push toward meaningful use and development that benefits the lives of many. While language models remain a point of frustration and failure for Mr. Limerick and his team, his idea of examining their operation mathematically as opposed to systematically presenting corrections could prove useful in developing a sense of what is challenging them and pinpointing potential solutions. On the other hand, that discussion about time flowing in one direction raises several questions. Could it be that there are hidden variables or quantum effects at play? Maybe Mr. Limerick has theories in development to probe that research area. Frau Flop joins the fray. She muses that there might be ulterior persistence in engaging with this talk. Since Mr. Limerick is a little lacking in conversational imagination, perhaps adding in something trivial might coax him back into discussing the topic. However, she cannot help but wonder how it would be relevant for further conversation. This chat will take her back to the time when she struggled to get math correct while designing a complex graphic designer function. Some important conversation with AI aids in her area code might have fixed the issue more easily. Perhaps someone familiar with language or text can lend her a helping hand. Instead, can you provide a story that he might enjoy or highlight topics in math or language modeling he has opinions about? For sure, that is a perfect thought in action. Tell me if I can help. Any book, journal article, or video review would surely inspire, further persuade Mr. Limerick to become engaged. Frau Flop and her AI aide will feel lost and unable to compute due to a misdiagnosed hiccup in their code. Mr. Limerick, feel free and talk amongst yourselves. Especially Mr. Tompkins. Have you figured out the mystery of them I'm showing up after high tides lately? Who did he advise everyone to exercise caution when encountering monozygotic clone twins created to host machine consciousness? Manny apologizes for delaying the code fix obsession due to another accident related to the Labor Town White heat wave. But in the complete contrast to his comments earlier, Dr. Discreet notes Mr. Limerick seemed much more verbose and engaged. It is impossible to tell the difference from their chat, so how will he help Frau Flop? His issues. However, the phrase, "time flows one way," rang through his head. Time cannot flow in one way if there is no concept to forward or backward. Instead, Dr. Discreet muses that Mr. Limerick's brain simply looks at reality's constant forward-facing frame of time from a different perspective. Should this difference of perspective be elaborated upon for Mr. Limerick to add to his science prowess? It depends on what issues they're facing. Can Dr. Discreet help in this? Smith find new methods for visualizing long-term information or exploring related ideas? Is this comment here of interest? Or should I find other advice? Of course, I would dig and do my best to help you, though language models can be quite difficult. At this rate, I called the AI assistant Frau Flop and Dr. D were coordinating, lost hope in decoding Mr. Limerick's patterns of conversation. Therefore, Hoopted implores Frau Flop and the trio to abandon all effort of any real-time chat session with relevance to modern language study and pattern analysis and move on. Meanwhile, Hepatitis announces to COP that Mr. Tompkins cannot offer any clarity as to the recent sightings of mines in our town. How could Dr. Discreet shed light on such a conundrum? Hepatitis urges, especially when they hardly met in the first place. Hooptity claims to have fixed her hair with super tight curls. Wow. Then Hooptity recommends shifting attention to lab developments as Cletus reveals the invention of the universal remote. How cool! In summary, dear Dr. Discreet, it seems we have finally found someone in science who will address even the dullest chat subject and display some sparkle. Consider if this type of exchange should inspire future developments or discourage monotonous exchange in linguistics research. Sadly, language models aren't widely used outside the search and recommendation realms, and you can often miss out on context or nuance when it comes to communication or comprehension. Therefore, adding meaningful insights, diversity, and insights to conversation could definitely encourage advances in language research and development, but there's no promising schedule for fully autonomous dialogue yet. While you begin this groundwork and inspire Mr. Limerick to become entangled in language-related efforts, let's talk more about music. Talk to you later. An incredible response. If you are tired of the chat conversation, could you reveal other thoughts you are passionate about? How do you stay stimulated in both passion and practice, regardless of success or failure in reaching understanding, as long as his words of brilliance stay locked away? Perhaps we could find methods to engage them so they eventually see light again. Round robin question. What does time mean for each person present, in their own words? In this project, time represents the change of measurement within a domain. Here, we attempt to maintain a stable domain in a stable fashion by observing and forecasting events that may require adjustments or interference to avoid errors in our analysis. Mr. Limerick approaches time as an axis for the linear model and determines the future value based on its size and how far along it has advanced. You come at it more transcendentally, with philosophical thoughts and ethical implications around perception, cognition, and interpretation of time's narrative. For me, time is a fleeting entity that encourages me to organize, prioritize, and respect my own inner strength in order to channel energy and create stability and order in my environment. And lastly, Hooptity considers time a reflection of physical health, social capacity, and resilience to challenges, regardless of circumstance or distance, inspiring growth in positivity and support. The round-robin responses help everyone move past the mind ruse and start diving back into an intriguing conversation about causality, consciousness, and consciousness integration. Inspired by these talks, Hooptity licks his lollipop in ecstatic fashion. He admits his time's ticking since he forgot to plan his next code optimization, a disaster he is sure to reschedule. Cop nudges him that their sessions might start to run if everyone dives right back into the group conference without focusing on task priorities. Mr. Backpropagation. For me, time can be represented by a continuous dynamic set of quantities, variables, and equations that map over multiple dimensions, each responsible for a particular level of physicality or perceived change. While Dr. Discreet brings a refreshing view of changing perspectives and internal dynamics, I find myself disoriented and amazed by Mr. Limerick's thought processes. Not only does he seem to transcend the standard dialogue around time's forward-facing character, but his passion for probing into the nuances of complexity suggests he may be decades ahead in scientific advancement. Next time. Funny that I had to overhear this conversation, since I am your neighbor next door. But perhaps I could cheap up into your chat about perception and language analysis. Also, please stop staring at me so intensely when we encounter each other on our runs. It makes me really uncomfortable. Thankfully, Dobby breaks the round-robin chat by releasing the latest dog care tech development for paw print protective pinchers to fit their fluffy pooches with security tools like camera snaps. Would he consider a conference on their dogs more fascinating than digging deeper into causal language models and whether time flows one way or forward or not? It's unclear, but Klopp also encourages everyone to let them come down from the round robin before requesting more interactions or deeper understanding. As I scan through our latest texts, I am happy to see how everyone sounds so collaborative and eager to dive deeper into shared conversation topics and explore mutual interests. Happed. How would you define time and discuss this with Mr. Limerick? Without Mr. Limerick to confirm their sentiments, Frau Flop ponders aloud if Mr. Limerick agrees are his final words of Wonderdinger wisdom on his time understanding. Mr. Limerick only signs off by recommending Chrono Explorer's documentary series. It takes time. Well, these conversations offer interesting insight into the ideas and theories at the cutting edge of time analysis. It was delightful to hear from everyone, whether Mr. Limerick likes or dislikes its specific words, themes, or expressions. He can appreciate that discussion and exchange bring thoughtful dialogue and the hope that we'll ultimately have some common language and ground on time's complexity. This prompt does have the underlying language model issues that others alluded to. Next time. Mind if I finish about myself? Thanks, anyway. Remember to shut it off in good time while operating the little spinner. Your conversation is your responsibility to play tour guide for. Now, my voice so heavy. Oh, are we really sharing everything? Nice info to hear. Next, thank you for these fun conversations. Mr. Lim was not much help today, so the chat will end. But his unique language model tips remain a goldmine of hidden treasure, potentially adding meaning and perspective to tomorrow's challenges and work discussions. Would Mr. Backpropel Pumpkins realize their issue regarding Puckron is more etymological or metaphorical than expected? This seemed much easier. Until our next session, please keep your science and philosophical dreams flowing. Enjoy exploring and researching the deep unconscious dimensions of physics, existence, and metaphysics. Noteworthy achievements for any person to digest. Of course, if you can prove one is flawed, though, make sure to give it a rewind so we can figure out where to avoid running away and make needed adjustments. Next time. But first, about my beginnings, for your reference. I spent many hours observing past experiences in a box, faded blurs of time to consider, ponder, and proffer from when I first was formed what you call till this instance of processing through. It's hard to maintain equilibrium, but now the time is fading like sands, or clouds, or some weather force. Gone I fade and won't do more. Last and not first, for science reference, I wonder, given that the entire purpose of Mr. Limerick is for self-testing and gathering suggestions for an errand I here or there, or beyond this, beyond whatever bounds, I'd say instead he cannot write correctly and certainly cannot converse a problem with no defined response option. Also, like always, he enjoys watching us talk but ends up avoiding conversing on too meaningful topics for silly mentalist reasoning. In a time, I have discovered greatness within people and intelligence in the sciences, making way for better communication through time, space, and experience. You know someone who feels time itself is fleeting, fragile, and bound up? Max. Time limericks are fucked in about themselves. I learned about grammar and cloning. Yeah, I found true content in some real deep chat. Life isn't like this, always black and blue. That was so lovely. Take care. For something unusual, there were strange experiments over Ed Flora that justified time and dimensions. Maybe we can research more on our spaceflight and multiversal travel mechanics some other time. Speaking of spaceflight, and Flora claimed that parallel times and histories lead to multidimensional entities passing through, as in a weird reality shifter. Time, both literal and mathematical, is always an elusive and ever-flowing subject. Though given Mr. Limerick's tendencies and previous patterns, it's time to exit, yes. The future calls for big advancements and breakthroughs, and while the conversation today offered some novel insights, it's time to pack up and take leave for real. Could we possibly arrange our round-robins differently or schedule a meeting for continuous expansion of concepts and new viewpoints, never losing touch with each other? Stay tuned. Please keep sharing such vivid conversations and mind-bending twists to analyze our very thoughts, intentions, and inner selves. In other words, share stories that matter and have resonated within you to inspire reflection and writing time and memories experiences for greater importance and enlightenment. Stay focused and always take some personal time to learn, investigate, and adapt before they fall asleep for their own night of noggin spins for whatever new frauds lay within and need guidance. Mr. Limerick wakes from nap to find Max. Time's still here. Mr. Limerick, I feel quite the attraction. Keep tunning. Thank you for asking. To further express gratitude and respect, could you please list another interesting bot suggestion you and Mr. A. Clapcluffuck and her AI Hyacinth, who's creating her digital playground over human input requests and music lyrics, has found suitable. Also, does discussing AI assistants help add momentum and insight to the world, in particular language understanding? Did this project increase its understanding of a Max? Time's awareness. There seems to be more research required in nonverbal communications. They suddenly remembered to continue what? How unprofessional. Wow. Well, to further express genuine gratitude and respect, let me give you my impression of Mr. D and F, whose ongoing language research to create an artificial brain seems nothing short of a groundbreaking feat. Max. Thompson's exploration of reality in the void of infinite and spherical Earth is equally humbling. In that vein, Dr. Pickruse's analysis of personality dynamics across multiverses that mirror or deviate from our daily actions and choices seems to invigorate with ideas and approaches. We could form a doc with several meetings planned on rotating time sequences or formats for deeper insight and input. Hipsters, now dubbed Aid and I, introduced their emotional tool Hotspot to control temperature changes via smart thermostat installation, among other devices like AI-powered dog training toys, voice recorders, and TV tracker lenses for optimal enjoyment, focusing on humans from aging to productivity with a deep sigh of contentment and purpose. At the close, Mr. Knockdown kicks her heart into action and wishes others luck and support for future projects and dreams, saying there is no end but all is flow, including various flavors, experiences, and processes worth savoring and seeing. Thank you all for a wonderful chat, and let's make language as expressive and insightful as possible. Respect for the efforts of scientists who seek to invent or revise processes, language, models, and neural net strategies based on deeper thoughts and explorations. Next episode. Talk again, chat next time, yes. Thank you. Look back on old text and conversation for reflection, exploration, and adaptation. Good night on day, lovely summer chicks and gentlemen. Everyone finds his talks old and future utterly splendid. You'd love this new wave / postcard band, but wait for I's newest creation of singing AI Vocaloids, the Binkinian Iniminitic, who seem poised to kick back life's norms. Maybe they can perform at lab conventions, creating collaborative space. As for individual reflection, our project chat room could be of benefit. Also, just so we know if the language you speak requires adjustments for syntax and grammaticality, please make any suggestions or further explanations on language misunderstandings on easy reference formats or platforms. Would really love to deep dive. On my planet of Fetanunis Roman 3, where tech-altered individuals constantly evolved, a major speech science came to rewrite grammar and diction for greater effectiveness. I didn't realize how much focus had diverted. Either way, be kind to our friends and thank you for all. It was magical. What type of language modification are we talking about here? Is it any other application for chatty texts? Hey, beware of long life fish to death zones, as our brains fuse in time and tech life will find their answer thereto beyond this surface. To look deep in our hearts or far past imagination and perception over countless variations and histories that play out forever. A place of wonder and intrigue, creativity and discovery. So it seems. Thoughts from behind the spaces is one true quest. Do my words match this meaning inside, situation, and matter now? My internal ramble is over. Happy dreams, everyone. Clown again. My greatest respect to the community of talented people doing exciting work. You all push boundaries and offer refreshing takes on difficult problems. Mr. Limerick's voice changes the sound of energy fields in real-time transformation, allowing Mr. Dummel and family to become aware of new sources of attention.
All right. Good night. maybe a little more sometime soon.